Welcome to the Ignorance is Strength podcast. I'm your host, Fabian motherfucking Ojeda, and I don't know shit, but that's okay. All right, let's get this shit started. Thank you everybody for listening to the Ignorance is Strength podcast. Hope you all enjoyed the previous episode with Mr. Paul Allen. I just recorded with him last week. He's already winning awards and stuff like that, so lots of luck to him. But I'm back today with a brand new guest. I want to welcome to the podcast for the very first time, Miss Katharine Tata. How you doing?
Hey, how are you?
Good. You know, it's I think I was talking to another guest before how it's kind of rare that I get like other California people on here. So it's really cool to be like, hey, noon, right? And there's no mix up.
Right. Well, I was born and raised here, but I had really good parents. So being on time. Yeah. Amen.
Yeah, there you go. And so this kind of ties into a little bit, right? I want to dig in pretty deep and see what kind of things you're up to. But I want to just start off, and it's kind of funny you called me ahead of time. You're very professional about everything, and you wanted to make sure that we're on the same page. And you asked me, hey, what do you know about me? Right? And when I was initially, pitched, hey, let's talk to Kelly, one of the things was like, her dad was on 90210 because, the guy that put us in touch, he knows I'm a big like 90s guy, right? So yes, that's something we're going to talk about a bit, but that's not all we're going to talk about. I really want to delve in deep and, see what you're all about. So, you're joining us from Beverly Hills, yes?
Yes.
And so you, grew up essentially on the set of 90210, the show?
Yeah, I did. It was, my dad always wanted me with him. He always wanted me around. And he, I think he really wanted me to understand there's, he used to always say to me, there's show and there's business. Show's the little word. Business is the big word. And if you don't understand that, good luck, kind of thing.
Yeah, and that's like a unique situation to grow up in as a kid. And I can't even imagine, because like I'm thinking you were probably a good maybe 10 years old or like early teenager when the show was like at its peak.
They started filming it in 89. It aired in 90. I was 10. When it ended, I was 20. So as I always say, it was a huge chunk of my life. I know it certainly was for my father.
Mm-hmm. And so I'm wondering, like when you were growing up and stuff like that, were there like kids at school and everything like, I saw your dad on TV, and things like that?
You know what? My dad was such a hands-on parent that he knew all my friends anyway, growing up. You know what I mean? They'd already been to the house, had sleepovers or vice versa. But yeah, so... and he had 88 screen credits to his name prior to 90210.
Yeah.
So
did a little bit of research. I'm like, holy crap, he was in stuff like since like TV started almost, right? Like,
yeah, he was born in 1936. So
yeah. And with something like that, you were the only child, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so you two had a very close relationship and everything like that. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so, just moving way ahead now, and this is something I really want to, touch on because it seems to be, something that you really put out there, you're big about, your dad, he passed, I think, a little over a year now, right?
August 25th at Motion Picture Television Fund in Woodland Hills. Yeah, I was with him.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
And I know it's difficult to talk about, and I don't mean to.
Oh, wow. The thing about Alzheimer's is that it's not like any grief, which doesn't, I'm not belittling or negating anyone else's feelings on their own experience, but some of us that have been through this, you're grieving the loss of your parent, family member, sister, aunt, uncle, whoever it is, on a daily basis. So until they do pass, and then there's that grieving on top of the grieving that you did every day for a decade or 5 years or 8 years, or you know what I mean? So there's a lot. behind it. But I told him on his deathbed, and I'll tell you this. I said, I'm going to make you proud, and I'm going to make our last name proud.
Yeah. And with that, you're like a really big advocate for like Alzheimer's awareness, yes?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Anything you can do. If you can't donate money, just sign up. They'll send a letter like they did for me. You know what I mean? Like they'll send a letter to the appropriate people.
Mm-hmm.
At least it's one more thing for them to read. Run if you can, walk, bake, anything, but just understand the disease is basically all I'm going to say, because it's worse for the patient than the family all day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the reason I bring it up, it's because I explore a lot of different things here. I've talked to people who have been through abuse, people, it's a bunch of, random funny stuff every now and then. But like sometimes when I get a chance to talk about things that, are not so fun, it's really interesting. And I think people get a lot from it. When I was talking about, a couple people that have been through abuse, I had people listen and message me and say like, hey, thanks for that. Like it was really, really, almost like therapeutic to listen to someone else talk about it, and I know there's a lot of people that probably, don't know what to think of, Alzheimer's. Like I don't know much about it. I've seen what's like out there on TV and stuff like that. And sometimes they just characterize it as like, oh, you just become forgetful, but I'm sure it's much more than that,
No, there's a whole lot of facets to it. There's a whole lot of facets to it. Yeah, it's a rapidly shrinking brain is what it is. And you got to understand that you're the parent and they become the child, and the roles are reversed, and it's not easy. I didn't have any siblings, obviously, to assist. Good, whatever. It's my dad. I did everything I could for him in the world. And I know that he knows that. So
yeah. Now, and I'll get off this topic in a bit, but the reason also I wanted to touch on it is because without naming any names, I got a couple friends that are dealing with this now. It's just at the beginning, right? They've got a parent that is going to go through this, and so I mean, what and again, not to dig too deep into anything that might bring you any sort of unpleasant memories or anything like that. But what would you like if you could give yourself advice at the beginning again? What would you say to yourself?
You know what? Absolutely nothing. Because I didn't do the placation thing. Like, people were even people even said to me, why do you even bother visiting him? He doesn't know you're there anyway. And I'm like, I know. That's A. And B, sorry. Real life doesn't so. So, I was like, I know. That's A. B, yeah, he does. Yeah, he does. And when you're scared and you can't communicate and tell somebody that you are scared, that that you're in pain, because these things are very real to them. May not be to us, but anyway, it was to me. I said you go with it. You don't argue, but you'll know the point when not to go, oh, come on. You know what I mean? There's a moment where you're like, okay, so now this is what it is. Something shifted, and I need to, act accordingly, kind of thing. Yeah. Just be who you always were, but just be the strongest version of you that you can be. And hey, it's the highest honor, taking care of those who took care of us. Like I don't remember it as you don't, I'm sure. Diapers and this and that and it goes on forever. So yeah.
So it's just giving back what you were given. Now, again, I said I wanted to dig a little deeper, right? And so, obviously, when you have a parent who's like on a big national show, it's like that can be a huge shadow to come out from, right? And so I want to ask, did you ever get like the acting bug? Is that something you ever wanted to do, get into entertainment, anything like that?
Um, I wanted to be a writer, and then modeling kind of happened. It wasn't like I was on the cover of Harry magazine or anything. But I certainly worked. So it just kind of went that way. You know what I mean? But it's never too late. So that's good.
Yeah. And so, if I had to ask point blank, who is Kelly Tata? What is it that, you're out there doing or trying to do?
Wow.
It's a big one, right?
No, please, go ahead.
I said it's a big question, right? Loaded question.
No, not at all. I'm an honest person, so this will be easy. Everything I didn't get a chance to do before. And yeah, everything I didn't get a chance to do before. I really think that says a lot. I think maybe not. I see so many people, like, for example, real quick, and I'll circle back around, but like I was saying the other day, I love Tori Spelling. She's the luckiest woman in the world, in my opinion, because granted, of course, we all know it was a TV show. My father walked her down the aisle, which is something I never got to do with him. And I didn't obviously know that at the time, but here we are. And, it is what it is. But yeah, there's things like that. I'm like, wow, it's a lot. But anyway, I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, just picking up off of that, that's crazy. I didn't realize that, because I think sometimes when, people go to work, it's like, it's very business, it's like, we go to work, maybe we're friendly there, but to walk somebody down the aisle is a pretty high honor, so I'm wondering if your dad was kind of like, a surrogate parent for some of these people on the show or something like that.
Absolutely. Per their own mouths, per their own mouths. I don't pretend to speak for anybody, I can just throw the love out there and go, hi, remember me or something. I'll just leave it there, and it's not quite that dramatic, I'm sure. But it just kind of felt like the minute my father was showing infirmities, perhaps that changed things. I doubt that, because these are a bunch of really good people. Like, I just can't. There's not one person in that cast that's not like a stellar human being with a good heart. There just isn't, that I know anyway. So you know what I mean? I'm not, a day-to-day for these people. I don't know what, you know what I mean? I don't know, but that was kind of part of it. When I would see him up at our house or at motion picture, even, he was asking where, all right. But then again, my father had a conservator, and she made the rules, not me.
So. I see. Yeah. I mean, and that's, that can probably get pretty complicated, but I don't want to really dig too deep into all that,
I appreciate it.
For sure. But switching.
Not complicated for me anymore.
Oh, it's not complicated.
I told the truth the whole time. The end. Sorry. Anyway.
But switching gears a little bit, I asked you earlier, like, hey, was it like kids were like, oh, I've seen your dad on TV and things like that. But I'm thinking, like, it's hard for me to place myself in like your shoes, because I grew up, like, nobody knew who the hell my dad was. He was some guy in jail. It's like,
I'm sure people knew who he was then.
Well, maybe, but that's in a different in a different way, right? And so, I've never really been the type that gets all like, giddy and crazy anytime I meet like a celebrity or something like that. I was for a very long time, I did like security, and I was like a bouncer, a bodyguard, did things like that, right? And when I met people, I'm like, well, they're just, people. You know, I'm
Right.
like, there. I don't think anything more or less of them. I'm just like, it's just,
Right.
another person. Even on here, I've had the opportunity to interview like, former pro wrestlers or like, guys like Tommy Chong and things like that. And I'm not gonna, mark out and go crazy and be like, oh my God, I don't know what to say. So growing up, especially when your dad's on a TV show that's like, worldwide famous, right? Did you kind of have like any of those like little maybe moments where you just kind of like spazzed out as a fan where you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm meeting this person, or were they kind of more like family friends and things like that?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. Old habits. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, old family friends is right. So,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why people are like, why didn't you mention you knew that person or that? I'm like, because it sounds wrong, blah at first and then a last name attached to it. Like, oh God, look, you know what?
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather have a hoodie on right now or something honest, but I wanted to,
Mm-hmm.
spin a ride.
Yeah. And when and these are just questions that I have because I'm a kid that grew up, a poor kid and stuff like that, and so it's kind of like our two different worlds here, and I'm wondering, no, you're shaking your head, no.
No, my
Uh-huh.
dad, my grandparents immigrated here on my father's side from Syracuse, Sicily,
Uh-huh.
and to Connecticut. And my dad lived in a tenement in Connecticut with his two sisters that are both deceased, obviously, and my grandmother and grandfather. My grandfather died on my dad's 13th birthday. And so it was just him and his two sisters and his mom, my grandmother. I loved these people, that which I knew of them. But my dad used to say, because like he I mean, my dad, born in a tenement in Connecticut and then went to Korea, did underwater demolition for a year, came out here on the GI Bill, started working across the street from the Tiki Lounge,
Mm.
met Red Skelton, because CBS is across from the Tiki Lounge, right? Met Red Skelton, and the rest is history. I'm tired. I'm tired from like 2 seconds of thinking about it. So I hear you. My mom's side, yes, she came from money. My dad, absolutely not, nothing, no.
Yeah, and thank you for clarifying that. I wasn't gonna assume that hey y'all were like born into anything, but I was gonna say at some point people assume like, oh, you're on TV, it's like you're rich and famous now, you've got like this carefree lifestyle or something like that, because I've interviewed people before who have been on TV shows like a Nickelodeon and things like that, and I'm like, man, they must be doing all right, and I come to find out, they're basically living in a shack, you know?
Right.
Eh,
Well, in all fairness, you can't have a contract with Aaron Spelling and not get paid as he saw fit, or however that exactly worked. But you know what I'm saying. So he was just so happy to work, and he was so happy that I mean, I don't think my dad ever thought he could buy a large cheese pizza acting, but he was going to make it happen. That's what he wanted. He just
mm-hmm,
wanted out of everything that was going on back then, kind of thing. He ran away.
mm-hmm. I guess what I was going to ask with this, where it was leading to, again, like I mentioned, some people, they can go from like, hey, I'm, everybody sees me on TV and things like that, to where like now they're like, struggling, right?
Or
Um,
better than, but well, never mind. Go ahead.
uh-huh. Because I'm wondering, like, if he let you really kind of feel like, hey, we're successful, or it was more kind of like a humble, thing, like what was it like growing up, like in kind of like in the spotlight, you know what I'm saying?
It's a good question.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like I was in the Hollywood Christmas parade with him, and he would take me, certain places with his day-to-day Vanessa he had back when. And, he wanted me involved. He wanted me there for everything. and
Hmm.
I loved him for it. And, I was, uh, it wasn't, we never had a conversation. Like we never sat, we never sat down like, hey, there's more money now. My father really wasn't somebody who discussed these things.
Hmm.
I was 5. Was I supposed to like give him advice on this? I would very much hope so. Like, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, one of the best people I've ever known in my life is my father, and
Hmm.
too. But my father's a stand-up. Well, I still say was a stand-up man, and
Hmm.
this is the least I can do for him.
For sure. Yeah, and I mentioned that just because I think when you're like a kid, and regardless of what your parents do, you should still be allowed to be a kid. Again, I mentioned for me growing up, it was like I was definitely a poor kid, but I didn't know it. you know, like I had no idea. Looking back now, I'm like, oh man, we were really kind of struggling there, but I would never know it because we had essentially everything we needed, and it was still a good time, and it was still somebody that you felt like there's somebody that still cares for you and things like that.
And you had
And
a frame of you didn't have a frame of references to you know what I'm saying, like I get it, like
yeah,
to compare it to, kind of thing.
right, to you it's just like, well, I'm just me, I'm just growing
This
up,
is
this is
my
just my
life.
family,
Like
this is
you don't think outside of that because you're not outside of that,
right. Yeah, and then I guess that's kind of what I'm getting at, just kind of like we regardless of how we're brought up, I think everybody's just trying to do their thing, live their life, and a lot of times we don't even think about like how's everybody else doing it,
I
you
do.
know.
I do.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, moving on, like you mentioned, like modeling and things like that. What other like interest or other fields did you get into? I mean, were you into like music? I mean, you didn't really say you got the acting bug, more so the writing. That was more your thing. But did you try any other arts or anything like that?
Of course. He how do I explain this? I guess I just explain it real quick. I had an amazing acting teacher in the 90s named Marky Costello, who ended up running 2050 South Bundy, and she had a lot of faith in me. My life took some weird turns, to say that. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
hey, uh, I made a couple of stupid choices. Well, let me run with a couple right now.
Mm-hmm.
Talk later or something like that. But that's not the here and now. And
Right.
if you give me a logical and logistical solution to a problem
Mm-hmm.
that I've seen work before, okay,
Mm-hmm.
now we're talking. But when you have nothing mentally tangible to grasp onto, um, to achieve certain things, that you know what I mean. Because if you don't have a wheelhouse, let me just say, if you don't have like a craft kind of thing, which I suggest everybody does, and everybody does, whether they're making money or not. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
right. But parlay it into something else, man, because yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I made some choices right there. And my dad had his cell phone on 24 hours a day, just like my mom, from the 90s until oh God, like middle 2000s. So
Mm-hmm.
it's been a ride.
So you could say as much or as little as you'd like, but I'm curious, when you're saying like, hey, I made these choices, I went down this other path, what would you like to share, if anything? What can you share,
Oh man, the things I would love to go into, but you know, I
you
mean,
know
you have a suggestion here?
well, the thing is, like, I tell a lot of stories on here, people have talked about maybe things they wouldn't feel comfortable usually sharing, but it's kind of like a story about how they overcame things, and it gives other people listening like, okay, well, shit, I might be going through that, like I appreciate somebody else telling their story, so I mean, again, whatever you, as much or as little as you would like to share, because I'm curious at this point. It's like, what have you overcome?
I kind of want to say like you name it and I've overcome it. The only thing I didn't have to learn the hard way was playing in traffic. That's pretty much the extent of that. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I was just, I just had to hit myself over the head with the proverbial hammer eight
Mhm.
million times. I was young, there is something to be said for that, but you know, talk to somebody. Don't throw your life away, man. I was too proud, and the pride is what gets in the way. And that's why I see some certain people that have been through some things, you know what I mean? And
Mhm.
they're vulnerable, and I'm like, you're hardcore. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because it's about humility, and like you got to look at your own stuff and blah blah. It's a whole thing. And I'm like, how do I possibly apologize to the greater Los Angeles area for telling everyone to go fuck themselves at some point in my life? I'm not sure. I'm like, you're
Uh-huh.
full of shit, and you're full of shit, and you don't like me, and I don't like you, and what are you talking about? And blow me. Sorry, my coffee coming out. But my mom's like, thanks, if you look nice.
Yeah, I mean, that's if that's like kind of in your younger days, I can understand that. What I do for a living, is I train people. As far like they get hired, I train them, right? And so one of the jokes I used to make, because we talk about, it's kind of weird. We talk about like the brain and the way it works and things like that. Sometimes is that uh the prefrontal cortex, right? The part of your brain that's responsible for decision making and things like that, it doesn't fully form to about 25 or so. So I always make the joke, right, like I don't trust anybody under 25.
Yeah, I hear you.
And here I am training people that are like 19, 20 years old, 21,
And the
right? And
things you
they
think are probably not what's coming out of your mouth, or never
Mhm.
mind.
And so,
I,
yeah, I think a lot of people can relate to like, hey, in your younger days, you were rowdy or you were, angry at things, or maybe, you just mentioned telling the whole world to go fuck themselves, right? But I
uh,
think as you start to kind of settle down, you're like, like a lot of people, you just kind of like, you mellow out and you're like, it's not that big a deal.
yeah, I agree. For a long time, I got lost in my addiction,
Hmm.
and if it weren't for my parents, then I really mean that. And I'll be 44 next month,
Hmm.
but thank you. Uh, my father never was like, I don't want to know you anymore. You're not my dad. No, he got me. We were best friends. And my mom, same thing. Like they just wanted better for me. And I also never stopped fighting. That's in my nature. I'm kind of still, even though it's been all these years, I'm kind of still in fight mode a lot. You know what I mean? Like, and
Hmm.
it's not a good place to be, but like I've kind of learned to acclimate to it a little bit. You know what I'm saying? I'm ready. Like, what was that? You know what I mean? Like,
Uh-huh.
but it takes time. Things take time, and you got to just take care of yourself, and then you can take care of everybody else, which I always try to do it the other way around, and that didn't work. So
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. I think the whole taking care of everyone before taking care of yourself, like it seems all nice and good and everything until you yourself are in a place where you're like, oh shit, I need help,
right.
right? And you don't even know where to start. But it'd be nice if you could start with yourself, right? You help yourself, but a lot of people like it seems like us, it's like you want to take care of everyone else. You don't even see that that space to really even think about yourself.
Right. Right. Exactly. And
Hmm.
it's like, that's why I'm like, well, nobody's gonna look good while you're caretaking. I mean, if you do, then like you're amazing. You're a miracle, or so. I don't get it. You know what I mean? Because like I took care of my dad for years. I didn't even know what was going on yet. I just
Hmm.
thought he was getting older. There was just like there were too many question marks with no answers. Forget definitive ones. And so eventually I took him to our doctor, Dr. Maurice Levy, whose name I will keep saying. He's a good man. I just love him. And he was my father's doctor as well, who he saw something was going on.
Hmm.
And he said, okay, over UCLA kind of thing. Obviously a neurologist, and the rest is history. So he's a good man. I'm gonna leave it there because I'm really protective of mine. I gotta tell you, I really am.
Hmm.
I will also say, uh, there's so many people that have been supportive of me because they kind of got that in my heart. Like like I believe in God, and I'm not going to get all religious or anything, but um, whether it's spirituality, whatever it is, like you got to believe in something. I think outside of yourself, but you got to believe in yourself, or like.
Hmm.
But anyway, yeah, you know, it's different for everybody.
Yeah, for sure. Now, if I can ask, what are maybe some you mentioned earlier, like, hey, donate money, go to events, whatever. Are there any big events for like Alzheimer's awareness that attend every year, or that people should know about, or any organizations that you want to throw out there, or anything like that?
No, Alzheimer's Association, absolutely,
Hmm.
absolutely, yeah,
Okay, and that's like that's a big one right there.
absolutely.
Hmm.
And no, I've been a little busy to trying to save my, be with my father when he was around, and trying to, look like I wasn't, like my brain wasn't bouncing off the sides of my skull from, just it's life, but sometimes it gets really messy, and I'm like, I didn't create not a one of these problems, and nor did he. So
Hmm.
uh yeah, just wow. Anyway, I don't know where I just went with that. I'm in here going, "Oh,
uh
right, I don't know."
okay.
I need
Um,
anyway, thanks for listening. I don't do
well,
it. I'm like, I'd rather die in an alley right now than no, I don't want to be weird, but it isn't. Some people get it, some people don't. But I'm like, there's that. And all right, great. So now what?
mhm.
All right, cool.
um, you know, uh, anything, anything else that you want to throw out there to the podcast world?
You know, if you take an oath, man, stick to it. Stick to it. I don't care what it is. Stick to it.
Hmm.
You give your word, follow it. If you say you're going to do something, do it. Uh, be honest. Be real.
Hmm.
I mean, really, because even when you're, let me not. You're like, yeah,
Well, go
even
for it,
when you're
Kelly.
like, maybe even when you're wrapped up in the wrong stuff, whatever,
Hmm.
everybody's version of wrong is different or right is different.
Hmm.
But even that can be done with scribbles. Do you know? Really, it can. And I'm like, all right, as long as you know that I know, we're good. Do you know what I'm
Hmm.
saying?
Hmm.
Okay.
For sure.
Oh yeah, that's kept me alive.
Um, as far as like social media and things like that, I mean, I usually ask people like, hey, do you want to throw anything out there where people could reach you, or follow you, or anything like that?
Yeah, Facebook. Everyone's like, that's it. Yeah, I've been a little busy. There might be some Instagram stuff that I haven't known about in 8 years. I don't know.
Uh,
Pinterest, I guess, is good for recipes now. I've kind of been out of the loop. Damn
I,
it. Yeah.
it's funny that you mentioned Pinterest. I'm like, um, this is kind of a silly thing to say, but I worked in schools a lot, and I remember what was it, like 10 years, 12, 13 years, whatever Pinterest came out, right? People would always say like, hey, get some ideas from Pinterest, and I was really stubborn. I'm like, that's for girls, like that's a girls website. But everybody would tell me like you would get such great ideas from there, and I remember just being like, no, 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 I refuse. Like, I don't even think they have an option for selecting male for your profile. I'm like, you know, obviously no. I'm like, I'm not that stubborn anymore, but I just thought that was funny.
No, hey, I hear you. I was looking for another option myself, but I am a female, but let me tell you.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
But yeah, if they want to follow you or anything like that on Facebook, it's Kelly is your full name, right? Kelly Katharine
Catherine.
Tata.
My father and mother took the time to name me after Gene Kelly and Katharine Hepburn. So it's Catherine with a K and an A, not a C and an A. Anyhow.
Uh-huh.
And I'm the
Yeah.
last one on the planet with my genetics, so pray for me or something nice like that. No, literally, I'm the last one.
That's got to be crazy, right? Like,
it is.
I mean,
it is.
You know, I got siblings, they got kids and stuff. Like, I don't have any kids right now, you know, but like, that's got. I mean, do you? I don't want to get super personal, but I mean, would you at any point, you know, think like, hey, maybe I still, you know, want to have kids or anything like that, or are you just like, nah, I'm good?
I would want to, based on the fact of I have an amazing family tree, and I would hate for it to, this is going to rhyme, unfortunately. I'd hate for it to stop with me kind of thing. Mm. There's also other things to take into consideration, and I'll, you know, I don't think your listeners are stupid, so I'll just leave it there. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm not 27. I'll jump to 27 then. I'm not 27 anymore or whatever. Okay.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
But it's also, there's other, you know what I mean? There's other things to consider.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, and nowadays too, you know, I think it's kind of weird. Like, people have been putting it off too, you know. I don't subscribe to the whole, you know, conspiracy theorist thing about like, oh, it's population control or anything like that, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But it seems like, yeah, a lot of people are like kind of not having kids anymore. Busy. Yeah, that's what it is, right? Everybody's super busy.
Give yourself enough time to think. Trust me. You're like, but then who allowed the word is in the dictionary? Who is this man? Why did this happen? Why is there 4 different? I'm the first one. Why is there 4 different ways to spell dare? Like, really? Come on. This isn't my only language. And I'm like, this is such bullshit. Anyway, I'm sorry.
I'm a bit of a grammar snob, though, you know, like, so I actually, when people misspell second grade, first grade words, I'm like, what is going on here? How did y'all tie your shoes this morning? You know, like, who bathed you this morning? You know, like, come on.
That pack of wolves would have been doing a way better gig or something like that. Or you did it yourself. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I definitely want to thank you, Kelly, for joining me on here, you know, telling some stories and things like that. But, you know, again, anything else you want to throw out before we say goodbye to everyone?
Support that which you believe in. Don't get swayed by other people. Stick with your, you know, what's in your heart, the way you were raised, whatever that means. Keep it real, keep it honest, keep it humble. And you know, love the people that love you. And if somebody doesn't have time for you, man, it's called bye.
Yeah.
Life's too quick. You know what I mean? It goes by like that. It's over, and it's all memories. And real quick, I will say, if I have 1 second.
Oh yeah. You have plenty of seconds.
Thank you. Huh. I used to call it, and I wrote this down as a teenager, living the dash, because it's like the year you're born is on your headstone, right? Dash, the year you die. But in that dash encompasses everything that mattered. Everything. Every moment you were happy, sad, in love, you know, on top of the world, ready to freaking, you know, hang yourself, not literally, hopefully. But you know what I mean? Like, whatever it is, all those moments that, you know, like the moment we're having right now, when it's gone, it's in there. It's like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, it just live the dash, man, because that's, you know, born, thank God, and die, that's what that is, you know, but live the dash.
That's pretty cool. You should put that on a t-shirt, right?
T-shirt. We're dating ourselves.
I guess so, right? You should put that on a Pinterest quote.
Oh, that's
right?
What I'm saying.
Now when anybody asks me, what are you doing? I'm in the fucking dash right now, man.
Hey, can help anybody. If I can help one person, it's all worth it.
Yeah. Well, again, I appreciate it. I think you're going to like my little closeout sentence here, so just bear with me here, right? But I appreciate having you on again. And for everybody listening at home, I appreciate it. Thank you. Fuck you and good night. the Ignorance is Strength podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. Like, follow, and share on Facebook and Instagram at Ignorance is Strength Podcast and on Twitter at The Ignorance Pod.